The Vikings are hosting, quote unquote.
Yeah, it's
the
technically
Jets
a home game for the purple.
in London. Is it at which stadium is it at? Wembley or Tottenham?
I'll look it up really quick. I believe it's in
can't remember.
Tottenham.
Anyways, while you're looking that up, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets looked bad against the Denver Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
And the Denver Broncos looked bad as well, but the Broncos snuck out with a win.
Which is crazy because I think I saw something that there was some like NFL record for Bo Nix was the first quarterback to win after having like less than 2 yards per completion or something crazy like that. I don't know. I didn't watch that game.
I didn't either.
I've heard the weather wasn't great, which kind of added to the Jets not being able to do anything. But oh well, like everybody faces weather at some point. So I don't know. I do know Aaron Rodgers has a tendency to pout if things aren't going his way. It already kind of seems
really?
like
he does that?
I know,
What?
right? Although the crappy thing is, at least for a long time, when Aaron Rodgers pouted, one of two things happened. He either totally collapsed or it seemed like every time against the Vikings, he like turned into some crazy maniacal Superman and threw for 10,000 yards and pulled something out of his butt and won the game. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope he pouts and totally collapses again. That would be great. But yeah, judging by the way this last game, just seeing the box score, I'm not too afraid of the Jets. I'm more afraid of the travel and the coming off of a bad second half for the Vikings. That's what I'm afraid of.
And the hype of playing in the London game and all that. And granted, that's not as... it's not as big of a deal as it used to be because there used to only really be 1 or 2 international games a year, and they've expanded it out to quite a few. So it's at Tottenham. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, and Tottenham's the one that I think the NFL either they themselves built or the NFL has some kind of ownership. They at least had a hand in the construction of that stadium a handful of years ago. I
think it's the preferred stadium. If you're an NFL team visiting London, I think you'd rather play at Tottenham than Wembley.
Is it? Although, and that's not to say Wembley's a garbage arena. I think it's a kind of historically great arena, but for American football specifically,
I think Wembley was built for soccer.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
I think Tottenham, like you've said, and I guess I didn't even know that until you said it, but it sounds like Tottenham was built maybe with football in mind.
Yeah.
Maybe more soccer, but with football in mind.
There's something, I don't know if it's like the NFL as a whole has some kind of ownership, or if it's something like as simple as the Jaguars owner has some kind of ownership. There's some official partnership other than just the NFL plays a few games there every year. That's like an official business partnership. And like I said, there was also some decision making by the NFL on how that arena was constructed. So it's going to be a little bit more geared towards being more well-rounded. Obviously, they play soccer there, but
if we've got any experts out there, feel free to drop a comment and educate us. We'd like to know if there's any knowledge to be learned about how Tottenham was built.
Mm-hmm. So. Although I do think, and you talk about playing surfaces all the time in football, specifically for American football in London, and players have had a tendency not to outright complain about like the field turf there, which I think both stadiums have natural grass. But that is the stadium. The Vikings will be playing in the same stadium that Lewis Seen had his horrific injury a few years ago. And,
That's a good point.
And it's not just because of the field surface why he got injured, but it's still something to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they're traveling to London. It's going to be obviously an odd game for both teams. The travel alone is crazy. The adjustment to a different time zone, the jet lag, all that is a lot to overcome.
The jet lag?
The Skol lag?
I was just going to say, hopefully it's a lag of jets. Lack of jet.
All right, I see.
That's terrible. I've had too many of these middle of nowheres here, and I'm only halfway into my first one. So
I see where you're going with that one, and I like it, actually. That makes sense. Anyways.
Thanks for humoring me. I appreciate it.
No, I think these international games, they take a lot out of an organization. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot for your support staff to plan, like your equipment staff, your operations staff. They've got to figure out how to get gear onto an airplane, not a bus. I guess they're flying in the U.S., but like to get it over to a different country, go through customs, all that. That's a lot. And then, you're playing on a surface that's not built for football necessarily. That's different. Your body isn't used to being awake at the same time. There's different food, different stuff available to you over there, stuff that like you could walk down the store to a Walgreens or a CVS and get whatever you need here, and you might not get that in London. You just don't know. So all of that to say, it's an adjustment for both teams, and I think the better coached team will win on Sunday morning.
And at this point, yes, we drink the purple Kool-Aid. We are Vikings homers, but I don't think there's any question which team is better coached at this point. Overall, on the field, off the field, everything like that, I think the Vikings are miles ahead of the Jets right now. As proven by the fact that the head coach and Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh, is that his name? Saleh. They have had like public arguments on the field, and they try to laugh him off, but I don't know. It reminds me of Kirk Cousins grabbing fine. Mike Zimmer and yelling at him, So I think the Jets, of all the teams the Vikings could play, I think the Jets are a good choice. Like I said, I'm more concerned about the logistics. I think we would see TJ Hawkinson back earlier than we will because they're playing in London. Not that he would have played in this week's game if it wasn't in London, but I think it just delays it a little bit longer. I just think that's going to be more of a hurdle, on top of the idea that the Vikings just kind of S the bed in the second half of their most recent game. I think it's going to be more mental, more internal for the Vikings than facing the Jets.
Yeah, and I think Kevin O'Connell, in his presser, again, it wasn't Tuesday. It was either after the game yesterday or today. I looked at a lot of stuff. I watched a lot of footage, but I think he set the stage well for his team too. This win means nothing. Is it huge to get a divisional win? Yeah, let's celebrate that in the locker room and maybe on the bus ride home. But from then on, we got to get back to work, and we've got a lot of stuff to clean up, and we played a miserable second half of football where we nearly lost a 28-point lead. Like we have a lot to figure out, and the Jets might be looking at that thinking like, all right, this is how we bounce back. This is a trap game for the Vikings. Let's take advantage of it.
It's crazy to think that this year the Vikings have any trap games. Like that's
right. And I don't necessarily think that way, but I think the Jets could be thinking that way.
I agree with you. I think it could be looked at as a trap game.
Yeah, for sure.
So keys to victory. What do you think? What do the Vikings need to make sure to do?
I think the Kevin O'Connell led Vikings have proven that if they score first, they're more likely to win. So I think they need to score first or score early at the very least. It's tough to control who gets the ball first. You never know how the coin flip's going to go. And even if you win the coin flip, you may opt to kick it first and take the ball in the second half, which is typically what teams do. So it's not necessarily score first, but I think it's score early, and I think it's score often, because that was the key to the victory against the Packers, right? It was scoring early and often. If they would not have built up that 28-point lead, if they would have had a few duds of drives where they went 3 and out and punted, they would have lost that game, because the Packers would have roared back in the second half and it would have been 29-24 or something instead of 31-29. So I think you've got to score early and score often, and I'm stealing one of yours because it's important. They have to win the turnover battle. They have to.
Or at least tie it.
They've got to tie it or win it. They won it. I think it was...
I think they ultimately won it against the
Packers. By one.
Yeah.
The Vikings only turned it over 3 times, and the Packers turned it over 4. So, to me, until the Vikings lose a game and do those things, that's the key to victory. Score first or score early and often like they did against the Packers, and win the turnover battle. They do those 2 things, it's basically kryptonite to the other team. The Vikings are going to win.
Yeah, there's 2 important things that have seemed to have proven themselves out for Kevin O'Connell as the Vikings head coach. you hit the nail on the head. The turnover battle. Every time he has, and every Vikings fan has heard this stat for the last week or two or year, that every time Kevin O'Connell wins or ties the turnover battle, he wins. He's 21-0 as the Vikings head coach with that stat. Another very important thing is Kevin O'Connell, I think he's like 20 or 21-8 when his starting quarterback is healthy. That's huge. That's important. That means that his leading up, his game plan leading up, his communication with that QB is very important. And not that the quarterback is the only one doing anything, but it's no secret, quarterback is the most important position in football, maybe in all of sports. So when Kevin O'Connell has his guy healthy and they win the turnover battle as a team, the Vikings are basically unstoppable. Kevin O'Connell is basically unstoppable as a coach. So those are the very important things.
For sure. Interestingly enough, the coin is the only one to correctly predict the Vikings record to this point.
Interesting.
Of all of the picks that we made preseason. Mm-hmm. So we flipped the coin infamously. Still have it right here.
Yep, and it wasn't the football mugs, it was the bigger mugs. So.
But yeah, we got the quarter that went into the beer. Might be, starting to rust a little with the beer. Who knows? But anyways, of all the picks that we made, the coin, you, your wife, your kids, me, my wife, my kids, the coin is the only one to be perfect so far. Everyone else, this is interesting to me as well. Everyone else either predicted 1-3 or 2-2 at this point.
Interesting.
So we're all at least 2 games behind.
And we had both predicted a 1-3 record.
Yep.
As of right now, correct?
No, you picked 2-2. You had them winning the Giants and the Packers, but losing to the Niners and the Texans.
Okay.
I had them losing all 3 of those. I think we all kind of figured they'd beat the Giants, which they did.
Yeah.
And I had them losing to the Niners, Texans, and Packers. I have them winning against the Jets.
Okay.
What do you think?
I know preseason I had them winning. But I guess...
Are you sticking with that pick?
My official guess, I'll give a score too. Even with the things that scare me, the travel, the recent scare, which I think ultimately will be a good thing because it's something to work on. It feels like a loss without actually having to lose. Even with all that, I think the Vikings are going to win handedly, and it's going to be a 35-20 game for the Vikings.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a 15-point win.
And that is factoring both the Vikings being good and the Jets kind of collapsing a little bit. So that's my official prediction. I tried to talk myself out of it. I'm trying to say stop predicting wins, Austin. Stop feeling like they're going to, go and do the whole thing because they're not going to do it. We're Vikings fans. They've never done it. We joked about it before we recorded. 2016, when they started 5-0, we could have been saying the same thing. It feels like a very similar team to 2016. And it didn't happen that year. They went 8-8 overall and missed the playoffs. So I'm trying to tell myself, calm down. It's not going to work out. They might make the playoffs, but no. But
pretty significant difference, though, between the 2024 Vikings and the 2016 Vikings. And that's not that they... It's that they, sorry, I said that came out wrong. This 7%er, man.
Yeah, I know, you're only halfway in.
It's because Sam Darnold has been around basically through all of training camp and stuff.
That's
he was
true.
there for OTA. It wasn't this desperation move because in 2016 it was, oh crap, Teddy Bridgewater, his knee just stopped being a knee. It just ceased to exist anymore.
It got Thanos snapped is what it happened.
It's gone.
I would love to know the actual details. We're going to talk to a guy later this week that might have some unofficial information. I'm just guessing because he's more connected than I am, than we are.
But anyways, the ending to that story is they went out and signed Sam Bradford, and Sam played well.
He set... At the time, he broke the NFL record for completion percentage.
Yeah.
It has since been broken, but at the time, it was still really good, 70-something%.
And it was a good signing by Rick Spielman to go out and get the guy. And unfortunately, the rest of the team didn't play as well as maybe you would have hoped. And then that led to the 17 season, which surprisingly, Sam Bradford's knee decided to do something similar.
Yeah, that was weird.
And then
knee soreness.
Case Keenum takes over, and we
Plays
go to the
hero
NFC
ball.
Championship game.
Case Keenum is the definition of hero ball. He just threw it up and didn't care, and it just ended up working for most of the season. That was a lot of fun. But I will say 2016, it was also different because those first 5 games, the defense was on a historic run of scoring and turnovers and doing things that both led to wins and were unsustainable. You can't bank on your defense scoring a touchdown or 2 every game, and if that's the way you're winning, it's not going to last very long because that's not sustainable. You can have a good defense, but you can't consistently have a high-powered scoring defense.
And I think this year's Vikings defense, the 2024 Vikings defense, isn't that. They're not like fluky, oh, you scored a bunch of touchdowns and won your team some games. They have turned the ball over. They have forced some key stops on 3rd and 4th down, and they've given the ball back to the offense to do the job of the offense, right? Like, they've had a few splashy moments, and I think we've had a few defensive touchdowns, which is great, but I think that's a key difference too. The defense is playing its role. The defense is doing its job. Brian Flores has these guys primed and ready to go out every week to make the opposing team's offense job difficult. They've turned the ball over quite a bit, and they've put the ball back in the hands of Kevin O'Connell in the offense to go score points.
Yep.
And that's how we've won games in these first 4 games. So, yeah, I definitely like our chances too.
Yeah.
But I think my score prediction is lower. Again, I'm just going to continue to side with the defense here.
Okay.
And it's not that I don't have faith in the offense. It's just that the defense has played so stinking good. And I don't know what happened in the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter specifically against the Packers. I think it was more that the Packers figured something out and less that the Vikings didn't know what was going on. But I think it's low scoring. Did the Packers even score? Not the Packers. Aaron Rodgers. I keep thinking the Packers. The Jets. Did the Jets even score a touchdown?
We can look. I know
because it was 10-9.
Yep.
I don't think they scored a touchdown. I think they kicked 3 field goals, if I'm not mistaken. But correct me, please, if I'm wrong. You got it right here.
No. That's the Broncos. Doesn't look like any touchdowns.
So 3 field goals for the Jets.
Yeah. 3 out of 4 attempts.
Okay. So with that information, my official score prediction is 20-10.
Okay.
I think the field gives the Vikings offense some fits. I think the travel gives the Vikings offense some fits, but the defense figures it out. They allow 1 touchdown. 20-10.
Okay.
Vikings over the Jets.
Sorry.